you.
Nice to meet you too.
How's my connection doing?
Good, good. You're good. Yeah, and everyone, if you want to invite followers, feel free to invite followers. It's going to be a very interesting discussion that we're going to have. And for the folks that I'm going to be interviewing, I want to let you know that sometimes I might stop you if I have a really good question. So we'll see how it goes. Turn the screen. So anyway, this is weird. It is a little weird. You know what? Until we have a capability to do it differently, it is a little weird, but it's been working well. So.
I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I don't know. Someone. Okay. Okay, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and start. So let me introduce my guests. Guys, my guests here at Scope News and the Sunday Night News Show are going to be Adam Paglione. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Paglione, yes, you got it right. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And he is at I Am Your Lawyer on Twitter and Periscope. He is an avid scoper, very avid on Vine, I believe, as well, correct?
Yeah, I came from Vine. I don't Vine as much as I used to. I love Periscope much better. And yes, my username is I'm Your Lawyer. No, I am. I decided to get rid of an apostrophe and just go with the I Am Your Lawyer.
Awesome. And Adam's in Canada right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I have a very special guest who is joining us today, and her name's Marisa Mendelson. And she is, hey Marisa.
Hi, that was my dog Gizmo barking in the background. She likes attention.
No worries. We love your dog. It's all good. Marissa's actually and Marisa. Oh, doggy, hi. Marisa actually is a freelance journalist, and she's going to tell us a little bit about Periscope, and she's tells us a little bit about what happened, and the fact that she got from her position as a reporter for using Periscope. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I do want to start by telling you guys, Adam is not legal counsel to Marisa. He's not advising her legally or anything. He does not represent her. We're just kind of trying to have a conversation about potential legal issues and have an open dialogue. So, yeah. So Marisa, do you want to kind of introduce yourself to to the folks here, and just kind of give folks a little bit of information as to your situation, and yeah, and just we can start the conversation from there if you want.
Sure. I'll give a little background about what happened. I've been a professional TV reporter for more than 10 years now. I was last working as an investigative reporter at a TV station in Tucson. And what happened was I had discovered the app Periscope. As many of you know, it just was released in March, and I just found out about it about a month ago. And when I found out about it, I went and I used it from home one night, and I did a broadcast right behind me from my desk, and I just started talking to people, and I absolutely loved it. I just met new people, spoke to them, introduced them to my two dogs. I have Gizmo, and then I have Boo Boo. You may be able to see her. She's a little bit larger right next to me. And I also sang a couple of songs on my guitar. There are two songs that I've written, so there were no copyright issues there. And, oh, that's Boo Boo now talking. My two dogs are very talkative. They love attention. And reporters move around a lot. So, especially me, I've had, I think, 6 different jobs since I started in this business, or moved to 6 different stations in 6 different cities, 5 or 6. So it's hard to make friends and maintain friends. And so when I first went on Periscope that first night, I kind of felt like I had new friends in this new community, and it was really nice. And at the time, I didn't know what hearts were or what they meant, but that first day on Periscope, I got 27,000 hearts, which is, I think, pretty good. And but more importantly, I had new friends. But the next day, I went to work, and someone at work found out that I was on Periscope, and my boss told me not to use Periscope again until the station could come up with a social media policy to address it. And then I immediately, and they also had a problem that my Twitter account identified the station call letters. So I immediately removed the station call letters from my Twitter account because my Twitter account was something that I had prior to joining the station. And I also removed the call letters from my Periscope account. And then I noticed that other employees had Periscope accounts. Another employee was using Periscope, and also another employee had used Periscope at the station 2 months prior, and no one else was given the same policy that I was given, which was not to use Periscope. So, seeing that I had now removed the station affiliation from my accounts, about a week later, one night when my little Gizmo, the funny one, was sleeping on her little back with her little paws sticking in the air, and she was snoring, and I thought it was really cute and a little periscopable moment, I decided to Periscope it. And was I wrong to do that in the sense that I was told not to? Yes. But at this point, you know, I felt that it was wrong to single one employee out. And also I noticed that a manager at the station, I'm not going to say who, had started a Periscope account the same day that I was told not to use it and started following only me on Periscope. And I kind of thought that was unfair to follow only one employee when there were other employees using it. So that employee, of course, got a notification that night when I went on and did this Periscope of my snoring dog. And so I kind of felt like I was being stalked in a way. But regardless, after that Periscope, the station still let me go away to a conference, which I paid for out of my own pocket. It was an investigative reporters and editors conference. And when I got back from that conference, that's when they fired me. And let me tell you what they said.
Yeah, tell us, because there's a lot of comments and lots of support for you here on Periscope.
Sure. Because this is important. They basically said that, you know, Marisa, we told you not to go on Periscope. You went back on anyway. We're letting you go for insubordination. So the reason why they let me go is for the insubordination, which is true in a sense. I didn't follow orders, but I stick to my guns that I think it's silly for the reason. You know, it was a snoring dog. And also they felt that my initial Periscope of me singing my songs and showing my dogs in the first place was, quote, inappropriate and unprofessional. They had only seen other news outlets using Periscope in a studio setting. However, I feel that the purpose of Periscope is to get to know people on a deeper level. And I think, you know, news outlets, especially ones, if you're familiar with the rating system, smaller news markets, they get ratings based on diaries. People fill out diaries, and you know, during ratings. And I think Periscope is a great way to familiarize viewers with a station and you know, reach out to viewers that you may not normally get, and get new fans and get more people to the station's website even. And you know, that night, that first night on Periscope, I was speaking to people not just in Tucson, not all over the US, but all over the world, and it was really just quite incredible.
Yeah, and a lot of people here, and for those of you guys that are jumping in, we have a special guest. Her name is Marisa Mendelson, and she's in Tucson. So, you know, lots of comments, lots of questions coming, and really lots of support for you. Lots of support for you, Marisa, because
thank you so much. And really to everyone who has reached out to support me so far, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate it beyond words. This has been really the most depressing time or one of the most depressing times in my life. And so I just, you know, those of you who know me know how committed I am to my job and how I'm literally married to it. So this was really, really tough for me. So
I know
thank you to everyone.
People here that they watched your scope. So what is her Periscope name? It's at Marisa Mendelson, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
At Marisa Mendelson.
Yeah, if you guys go to my Twitter, you will see her Twitter name, and it's the same on Periscope. So they're asking, I don't know if I should ask Guy, actually. If you don't want to comment about that, that's fine, but they're asking me to ask that, so.
Yeah, K-Gun, that's another station in town. I did not work at that station, but K-Gun has used Periscope for months, and they are great about it. I mean, they just have tons of viewers on there, tons of fans, and I think it's wonderful. I noticed them mostly using it in their studio, and so that's why when I initially used it from home, my management was kind of taken aback. They felt it was inappropriate for a reporter to use it from home.
Awesome. And folks are asking if at some point you can join the scope so that they can follow you on Periscope. So.
Well, Marissa, I mean, I've heard what you just said, and I read about your, your situation. First of all, I think it's absolutely short-sighted by your employer to prohibit Periscope use. As we all know, there are many newscasters using Periscope every day. One of my favorites, Alex Butler TV. She's fantastic, and she's using Periscope from her home on her own time. And you know what it does is it develops a rapport, right, with that newscaster, and you develop almost a friendship with that person. And if I were in Carolina, I'd be watching Alex Butler TV, and I'd be watching it, daily. Mike Anderson is another guy, and he's using Periscope, and he's a comedian, as I understand it, on the side, and I think he's really funny. I wouldn't have known who he was, and if I ever see him around my area, I'll go check him out, or I'll watch him on the newscast. But I also think it was a bit of a witch hunt, if you will. Perhaps it was a premeditated strike. I think I found it very interesting that you said that one of the managers started following you and only you. I think that they targeted you, and absolutely unfairly, in my opinion. But I did want to reiterate something that Kathy said. Obviously, I don't represent you, and nothing I say here today should be considered legal advice to anybody, anyone in the chat or otherwise. And despite my username, I'm your lawyer. I'm actually no one's lawyer here in the chat. But and I'm also a Canadian lawyer, so my advice and my comments are really restricted to Canadian law. Sorry, that's a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo before I get into my part. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous, frankly, and I feel bad. But I know you're obviously experienced, and will find a good home somewhere else. I'm sure somewhere that will appreciate, the evolution of social media. It's so important. I can't imagine a place that would be that short-sighted.
Thank you.
Yeah, and guys, once again, first we've got some new people jumping in. We've got Adam Paglione, who is I'm your lawyer in Canada, and then we've also got a special guest, Marisa Mendelson, a freelance journalist from Tucson. So lots of questions here, and then they're reminding us, Dan Brook, and there was another person reminding us that Twitter got Gilbert Gottfried fired. I think the big difference is that, obviously what you did wasn't necessarily, in my opinion, the sleeping dog and you singing your songs is nothing that is going to, jeopardize the station's reputation. If it would have been something of a different nature, maybe, but, can you just give a recap of what happened? Let's see, Marisa, someone tell, yeah. Lots of support for you, lots of followers. And yeah, so the recap, the recap basically, guys, because I don't want Marisa to necessarily go over everything again, is that she actually got terminated from her job as a news anchor, as a news anchor in Tucson, after first she got let's say a warning or something for using Periscope, and then she was told never to use it again. She did use it again to just show her dogs, but so other people at the station were using Periscope. So, did I get that right, Marisa?
I think so. I think so. It was breaking up a little bit, but I don't want to give journalists or anyone using social media the wrong impression. I don't want people to think that they can just go on any type of social media and libel or slander someone. I mean, defamation can still get people in trouble. that's, libel or slander, for those of you who don't know, is when you say something false about someone, or write something false about someone. And obviously, I'm smart enough as a journalist to not do one of those things, and I didn't say anything negative about my station, or portray my station in false light, during my initial broadcast. And during my second broadcast, when I showed my dog, it was literally a sleeping, snoring, innocent dog. And those are things, my sleeping, snoring dog, those are things I post on my professional Facebook page all the time, on a weekly basis. If you look on my professional Facebook page, which I still have, you'll see my snoring dogs on there sporadically. It's just something that I do. I'm a quirky person. It's something that you get. And if you look on the internet, you'll see singing videos of me from back in the day that I wish weren't there, but they're there. The internet has it all. So, when this station hired me, they should have known what they were getting. They were getting a girl who plays the guitar, who sings, who has a musical theater background, who's a little bit quirky, who loves her dogs. My life is my work and my dogs. And, I'm an artsy-fartsy girl, so I have a quirky personality, but that also means I'm creative. I have ideas. So, I think that's a good thing.
Definitely. And I think that, lots of people here are saying, it seems like there's fear out there about social media as well, about new platforms. There's always this kind of like, we don't, so that might have played into it in some point, in some way, shape, or form. But Adam, I want to go to you a little bit now and talk a little bit about some of the things that you might see coming down the line, not only for journalists, but for, now that Marisa touched on libel and defamation, some of the things that you might see coming down the line that could be, things that scopers need to keep in mind.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is a new area of law. To me, it's very interesting. It's just developing. The law often lags behind technology. The law is always playing catch up to technology. As the world evolves, the law evolves, but the law is always behind slightly. And this is one of those cases. But I mean, one of the things that I tell my clients is that you should expect the same consequences online as you would expect in real life. Now, in Marisa's case, in my opinion, I think the difference between, the comment about Gilbert Gottfried there, it comes down to conduct, right? And what was the conduct that the employee was portraying or showing, broadcasting on that social media platform, in this case, Periscope, and was it disparaging to the employer? Was it disloyal? Were there untrue comments? When we talk about libel is a written type of slander, and slander is usually oral. But and would it disparage the employer? In this case, I say it wouldn't. That would, of course, would be the argument that I would make. And there is law now in the United States. National Labor Board has considered it. And if you make untrue statements or disparaging statements against your employer, even on your own Facebook page or somewhere you would expect it to be private, you can also expect that it's not private and will most likely end badly for you. But again, in Marisa's case, I don't see that at all. But I mean, this is very interesting, especially with Periscope. What we're doing, we're broadcasting, right, live shots, and everyone should be careful what they're broadcasting. Things are unplanned, unlike Vine, where I originally started, having fun and more of a hobby than anything. You're planning these Vine videos, and you can, put in, the part of planning is that you know exactly what's going in it. In our case, when I'm broadcasting every day from my house, I have twins, 12-month-old twins, and I have a dog that I broadcast all the time, and I, have fun, prank my wife, and all kinds of crazy stuff that I do. I'm broadcasting live, and even me, I should be careful what may or may not come up when you're broadcasting. But I mean, probably the biggest issue with Periscope, I say, will probably be copyright issues. Copyright issues are going to be huge. It's something everyone should be concerned about. I don't know what exactly we can do about it. That's part of the problem, right? And I use, on most social media accounts, right? Users, when you enter a social media account, when you sign up for one, you agree to user terms. No one ever reads those user terms. I don't even read them, but I have read them in the past. And you sign up and you agree to them. And in there, it states that whoever it is, whether it's Twitter or Periscope or Facebook, you are guaranteeing to the platform that you're responsible for your own intellectual property rights. Those intellectual property rights include copyright. You're guaranteeing that. And, can anyone guess, and I can't see the chat, Kathy, but can anyone guess which of all the social media platforms would be where copyright would be the most concerning? Does anyone have an idea which one it would be? Just give me a quick...
Yeah, can you guys... We got Twitter. Let's see, more people are writing which one. Facebook, YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter.
I haven't heard it yet.
I guess YouTube.
YouTube? No. Believe it or not, it's Pinterest. Can you believe that? It's Pinterest.
Wow, I didn't. Why? Tell us. That's interesting.
Well, it's interesting because Pinterest is known to have some of the most concerning copyright violations that there are. You're repinning things, right, constantly. Now, listen, I don't Pinterest. My wife does. But you're repinning these things, whatever it is that you're repinning. And when you're repinning something, it becomes your content, and you own your content, but you don't actually own what's in the picture that you're repinning. And so copyright issues are very live on Pinterest, and I thought that was very interesting. But now, what do you do about this, right? Let's say, I'm broadcasting, or anyone is broadcasting something, and, you're drinking a Pepsi at the time that you're broadcasting it. You've now broadcasted Pepsi's logo on your Periscope account. That's technically a copyright violation. Now, let's say you do that while you're wearing a Led Zeppelin t-shirt. Led Zeppelin, now you've just shown Led Zeppelin's logo and where they toured last year or whatever it may be, and you've now violated Pepsi, you violated Led Zeppelin, and in the background, believe it or not, you have a Taylor Swift song playing. Nobody wants to mess with Taylor Swift, right? And you've now broadcasted her song, and you say, you own the content that you're broadcasting. That's clearly a copyright violation. Now,
that's really interesting because someone had asked earlier about like music in the background. So
yeah.
Going at it. This is good. This is very interesting.
Well, now listen. Is Taylor Swift going to commence an action against you? Jane Doe 18. For using her song in the background of your Periscope? No, most likely not. I won't guarantee you that, but most likely not. But as Periscope continues to evolve, and as broadcasters get more powerful, inevitably, I think I've noticed that it started happening already, broadcasters are trying to monetize their Periscopes. You see it. I see it. I'm catching wind of things, and I'm seeing things happening. As they become more powerful, brands start to look at different broadcasters and think, which one would I want to team up with, and who would I want to promote my brand. And soon Periscope, and it happened in Vine as well, users will try to make money, monetize their Periscopes. If that happens, and it will happen, will Taylor Swift come calling then? I mean, that's the question. And if Taylor Swift does come calling, you broadcasted her song, you didn't have her permission to do that. It doesn't matter whether you give credit to that brand or that singer or that, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter if you give them credit. You didn't have their permission in advance. And if they were to sue you, commence an action against you, you would have no possible defense, in my opinion, and you would lose. That would not be a good thing. So copyright is a hot topic when it comes to social media, no question about that.
And here's a good tip. I know a lot of broadcasters use social media and are on Periscope right now, especially. And for broadcasters, something that becomes a really big issue is when we get pictures from viewers and verifying the authenticity of those pictures. And one way for broadcasters to do that is, well, there's several ways, but one way that's super easy is every single picture has something called metadata. And you can check the metadata of every photo. And what that metadata is it shows who took that picture, when they took it, what kind of camera they used. All you have to do is right-click on that photo, and it shows all of that information. So, for example, if you're doing severe weather coverage and you want to verify that that picture was actually taken that day, that metadata is going to show you the date of that photo. And if it shows that it was taken 5 years ago, you can authenticate that, hey, this is a fake photo. And then also you can do a Google image search, and you can drag it into that Google image search, and you can see, oh wow, there's 1,000 other of these pictures already of the internet. It's a fake.
Someone asked, what do you use to look for the metadata?
All you have to do is right-click on the photo, and just that way you'll just be able to see the information behind the picture.
Yeah, they're saying great points. And Marisa, also, like, because, you know, obviously when you're a journalist, there's so many things when it comes to, like, you can only film, you know, on the street because it's public property and that sort of thing. So do you think that maybe Periscope might run into some of these things where, you know, you're only allowed to broadcast from a certain place?
I think that privacy laws apply for every social media outlet just like they do apply to journalists. So people you need to look up your state laws as they apply to privacy. People always should have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So for example, if you're in a private home, you don't have the right to use Periscope without, you know, without letting people know. You don't have the right to do, for example, undercover video in a private home. But if you're in a public place where people don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy, then that rule doesn't apply. So, you know, you just have to look up privacy laws and become familiar with those, because you could run into a lot of trouble with that. You know, so for example, people who make undercover sex tapes of people without their knowledge, they can get into a lot of trouble for that, because that's a private home.
Yeah.
And I think Adam can tell us a little bit more about that.
I don't know about the undercover sex tape part, but what I can tell you is that
my show is always fun, isn't it?
I don't know why I use that as an example.
No worries, Marisa. We're having fun. Okay.
Well, you know what's funny is I think about Google Maps, right? Google went around and they filmed every single street in the entire world or something like that. And if you take a look at Google Maps, and if you happen to catch somebody on their front lawn and they're watering their lawn, their face is blurred out. And so I think about that, and I think, well, geez, we're periscoping all around the world every day, and we're not blurring out any faces, nor can we, nor do we even have that ability. But I think you're right. It comes down to a reasonable expectation of privacy. And it also, see, lawyers, when we look to sue someone for something like a violation of privacy, one of the first questions we ask is, you know, what are your damages? What have you lost? You know, if there's no damages, I don't know if there's anything that you can sue for besides, you know, general damages and things like that. And then we start talking about boring legal things that I find interesting, mostly just me. But you're right, we're broadcasting every day, and we're seeing people's faces, and we're, you know, filming people that don't expect to be filmed. And, you know, take a look at what this guy's doing right now, or, you know, I don't know that there'll ever be anything anyone can do about that sort of thing. Should that happen, Periscope wouldn't be able to operate, I would guess, unless Periscope put some sort of feature in place that would blur people's, you know, faces out. But you're right. When, you know, even some of these YouTube videos, pranks and stuff, my understanding is they have to get a sign-off. The Jackass movies and things like that, they had to get sign-offs on every single person that participated. Borat, we all remember that movie, right?
I did that when I used to produce a TV show for Animal Planet for Discovery Channel called Animal Police, Miami Animal Police.
Oh yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm an animal lover, so it's really hard. But I was one of the associate producer. I mean, I was on the ground trying to get releases from absolutely everyone I could. So yeah, very true. You have to get a release from absolutely everyone in those cases. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's interesting too, right? There's some issues there for sure. And part of what helps, I guess, is that the videos disappear after 24 hours. So you'd have to try to find them and prove that they actually happened, but that would be the lawyer's problem. But there was an interesting case just recently here in Canada. A couple of weeks ago, there was a soccer match, and there was a newscaster outside of the soccer match who was interviewing somebody on the street, and this gentleman who had attended the soccer match came running out, and he yelled obscenities into the newscaster's microphone. This is like a trend that's happening all over the place, and there's this particular phrase that these people yell into the microphone, and I won't say what the phrase is.
I know that phrase.
It's obscene, okay? And this particular gentleman, or I guess I'm using that word a little loosely, yelled this phrase into the microphone. Turns out he works for a well-known Canadian utility company. Now, listen, he wasn't wearing a uniform. He was off duty. There's no question about it. But the next morning, guess what? He was terminated. And again, it comes down to his conduct in that case. Somehow, some way, people found out where he worked, and it looked poor. It was poorly, it looked bad on his employer, and he was terminated. These things happen every single day, and again, so then you start thinking, what can I do if I am terminated, right? And some people will say, I'm going to sue for wrongful dismissal, and then you have to go and you have to hire a lawyer at $400 an hour, and you hope that you win, because if you lose, you spent $50,000, starting a case that you may never win, right? And then you have this people who say, that's okay, I'll represent myself. And what I say to those types of people is, he who acts for himself has a fool for a client. That's my famous phrase that I like to use from time to time. But these are hot topics that I don't know anyone has answers to yet. We'll just see how they progress.
Yeah. I have a good question for Adam. A lot of people on Periscope have been doing prank phone calls, where they call people, put them on speakerphone. But I'm not sure how it works in Canada, but in the States, some states have a one-party consent law or a two-party consent law. For those who are not familiar with a one-party consent law state, only one party has to be aware that the phone call is being recorded. Two-party consent, both parties have to be aware and consent that the phone call is being recorded. So Adam, what do you think about these pranksters on Periscope who are broadcasting these prank phone calls, and could there be any legal repercussions?
So if it were me and a client came to me and said, John Doe pranked me on Periscope, and I'd like to sue him, first thing I would do is, one thing lawyers do is follow the money trail. And I'd take a look at John Doe and I try to figure out if he has any money. And if John Doe has no dough, I'm probably not going to commence an action. Now, if Howie Mandel pranks one of my clients, and I hope this doesn't get me blocked because I love Howie Mandel and I'm watching those prank videos every day, I'm suing Howie Mandel because, right or wrong, I'll probably get a settlement of some sort. So, when you're a lawyer, a lot goes into a decision to commence an action besides what is right and wrong. Strictly by the letter of the law, you're absolutely right. Based on the state, did the person have knowledge? Was the person embarrassed? Probably. Really, I can't believe a guy like Howie is doing these types of prank videos, and they're real. I know they're real because he called one of my friends. I put a number up, and he called, and unfortunately, she wasn't home, so I couldn't take advantage of a genius prank I was planning. But it's real because he called this girl. So I don't know on that one either. That's a tough one. In Canada, it's the same way. You would need both sides' consent in advance, which of course is impossible. Even radio stations, when they are taking callers, or there's a radio station around me, it's actually in Detroit, Michigan. They do War of the Roses, and what they do is they send roses to anybody you want. Your boyfriend, for instance, you could 1-800 some, I'm not going to say some rose company, 1-800 rose company. Calls this boyfriend on the phone and says, you have a free dozen roses, who would you like to send it to? And if he doesn't send it to his girlfriend, he's got a major problem because it's live on the radio, And but my understanding is they have to get that person's consent in advance, which kind of throws the whole prank off, right?
Mhm. No, that's very interesting. That is very interesting because there's so many, things to think about as how, what's going on, how are you using Periscope. There was a really good comment from David Bushel, who's actually in Canada, and he was saying, are you using Periscope for enlightenment, education, or are you using it, what are you using it for? So.
Is he asking that generally, or is he asking Marissa, one of us, Marissa or I?
I was just making a comment.
Because everyone knows I'm using it pretty lightly.
So I don't know if you guys have any questions in the audience. If you guys have any questions to ask. Adam, can you scope at a public venue?
Can you? I mean, the answer is anyone can do anything. Should you is probably a better question. You're certainly taking a risk. The other day I watched Elton John, who I love, at a concert. Someone in the audience was periscoping it, and I was so thankful that he or she was, because I got to see Elton John without paying for a ticket. The NHL, obviously I'm Canadian and hockey is huge here. The NHL has banned Periscope in all of their arenas. And if they catch you periscoping, you'll be thrown out. And if you broadcast something like that, you could be liable for damages to the NHL, and they may just enforce that, because guess what? They have a team of lawyers sitting in a room looking for things to do, and that would probably be something that they would be interested in doing. I don't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it to a friend or a client, but it's going to happen regardless. And until someone gets sued, it will continue to happen. But I really wouldn't. I don't want to see Periscope go down that road. Really, I think it's going to ruin Periscope. I don't want. I would hate to see something happen where we're prohibited from doing certain things. I would hope, and it won't happen. But I'm an optimist, and I would hope that people would manage themselves, accordingly, so that we could avoid these things that may limit Periscope in some way. It's such a fantastic app. I absolutely love it.
So Marissa, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think he did a really good job summarizing it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of legal concerns with any sort of medium. I know that sporting events, I know when the media outlets cover sporting events in general, the NBA, college, various college sporting outlets, there's a lot of guidelines that we have to stick by. For example, I know that stations have gotten in trouble, for broadcasting news conferences when they didn't have the rights to. So it's not just Periscope that's the target in that arena. It's just you have to have the rights to broadcast certain sporting events. So there just are a lot of guidelines when you are a media outlet covering those things, and you get that sort of background access.
Yeah. And it's interesting, one of the people was commenting here that Timothy Peach had been kicked out of a mall for scoping. I got kicked out of a Starbucks for scoping. But it happened in the moment where I was scoping fine, everything was fine, but then someone's like, show us show us Starbucks. And I turned the camera towards the counter where they do all the drink, the baristas are. And that's when they said to me, ma'am, can you please leave? You cannot film inside the store. And after thinking about it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Because I guess, there's proprietary stuff on how it's done, so I understand. I've been back at Starbucks and I've streamed from there, no problem, as long as I'm not showing that kind of information. So.
But you know what, and that's a private place. That's a private establishment. So people need to bear that in mind. As a journalist, I can't just walk into a Starbucks and I was a one-man band journalist. I shot my own video, I edited, I did my own research, and I was the reporter on camera. So they call those now, the more politically correct term is MMJ, multimedia journalist. So I did it all. So as a journalist, I can't just walk into a Starbucks or walk into a concert venue and take out my camera and start shooting video. I have to actually go through a public information officer and get permission to do that. So just with Periscope, since that's a private establishment, you can't just take your Periscope and start, periscoping in that establishment, because there could be consequences. However, if you are in a public place, on public property rather, you have the right as a citizen to take your Periscope and shoot video. So for example, if you see breaking news, if there's an arrest being made, if you are on a piece of property where the general public has the right to be, you have the right to be there as well, unless if the police put up a piece of yellow tape and say that you're no longer allowed to be there and you're interfering with the investigation, then you should oblige and move.
And Kathy, you probably didn't realize it, but you're broadcasting Starbucks logos and Starbucks recipes as the barista is starting to pour the sugar or whatever it is that they put in those drinks. It's interesting that you got thrown out, because I do something. Kathy, you just very recently started following me, but I do something on my Periscopes. I started the scratch ticket lottery game, and I don't know if you've seen me do it, but it's where I go to a convenience store and I buy the most expensive scratch ticket that I can find. In my case, it's a $20 scratch ticket, and I don't scratch it. I have the cashier scan it right away, and it's live on Periscope. We're all there, all my friends. I don't like to call my followers, I call them friends, and my friends are on my Periscope with me, and we're watching live. Now, here's the thing. We watch the screen, and if we win big, I'm flying everybody in the room to Canada for a party on me, completely on me, including your airline. And we do it live, and the cashier's in on it, if you will. He knows I come in, I go to the same guy every time that I do it, and we have a lot of fun with it. Now, what am I doing? I'm broadcasting a certain convenience store brand in Canada. You guys probably wouldn't recognize it, but it would be similar to a 7-Eleven. I'm broadcasting him. I'm broadcasting online gambling online potentially to minors. I mean, there's thousands of things that are going through my mind as a lawyer, and I try to separate myself, lawyer, from Adam, but I do it, and we have a lot of fun with it. So there are even things that I'm doing that most definitely I should not be doing. And also I wanted to add, we've been talking a lot about employees. If you are an employer and you're watching now, I think one of the most important things you can do is have a clearly set out and defined social media policy. And that's something that Marissa's employer did not have, which is interesting to me. But if you don't have it, you should. And it should envision anything that you can imagine, foresee happening with your employees. Have it clearly stated. Have it passed out to your employees. Make sure they understand it. Have them sign that they are understanding it and that it is a part of their employment agreement. And if you do that, I think you'll protect yourself as an employer too.
All right. Well, I think we need to cut it short for family reasons on my end. But I just wanted to say thank you guys. Once again, my guests were Adam Paglione, I'm your lawyer on Periscope and Twitter, who has been amazing, and then Marisa Mendelson, who is our special guest. Thank you guys thanks Marisa, first of all, for sharing your story. We really appreciate it, and then Adam as well for commentary and sharing, some of the things that are going through your mind as an attorney. So yeah, my baby's crying. So
no,
I'm going to do a scope right now, just in case if anyone has any follow-up questions.
Yeah, go ahead and do a scope.
Okay.
And
so
yeah,
anyone wants to
can you
me on that, Marisa Mendelson. What's that?
Can you repeat your handle?
Yes, it's at Marisa Mendelson. I'll put it in the scope right now.
Okay, perfect. And Adam, if you want to put your name in here too, so people can follow you. I didn't get to all the questions, but obviously, mommy duty calls. Gotta go. But this was an amazing discussion. I think everyone was very interested, and thanks to everyone that jumped in and watched Scope News. We had a really good crowd, up to like 90 people at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you,
Marisa.
Yeah, you can follow me at I'm Your Lawyer, on basically every social media site except for Pinterest.
Except for Pinterest. All right, Marisa, thank you so much. Adam, thank you for being in Scope News. I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll do a take two later on, all right?
Deal.